Hello, this is going to be a therapy class with your Balanced Body Red Ball. If it's a little soft, you can use those pumps to pump it up. I personally like mine a little hard, but have a little bit of give is kind of nice too. So we're gonna get the whole body today. We're gonna start with our back and then kind of work our way to the front side as well. So you're gonna go ahead and lay on down. You're gonna put this underneath your sacrum. So technically right above the butt crack. So I'm gonna put my hands on the front of my pelvis and just keep my ribs heavy, go grounded through the shoulder blades. Then keeping your chin pointing straight up, like don't try to look down. Not that you can really see anything anyways. So I'm keeping my glutes relaxed as I tilt my spine up towards the ceiling, and I'm kind of rolling the ball up my lower back, but I'm trying not to over engage my glutes to do this. And then I'm going to roll the pelvis towards my heels and feel that get into that lower sacrum. Exhaling to tuck the tail towards you, imprinting the lower back, feeling the tail lifting up towards the back of the knees. Again, remembering not to over engage the glutes. Dropping the tail down towards the heels, widening those butt bones. Feel the weight, the pressure, the heaviness into the ball. And just do that a few more times. Just focusing on the breath, focusing on the movement of your spine. Feeling the pelvis shifting forward and relaxing as it goes back. Kind of also paying attention to how this feels in your thighs as your hips tuck up, so pubic bone towards belly button. You should feel a stretch in the front of your thighs. As your hips reach down towards your heels, you maybe feel that expansion through the rib cage and the chest a little bit. One more time. Tucking the tail, relax the glutes, and rolling the tail away from you. So settling into that center, that neutral spine. So this one's kind of hard because if you're feeling, quote, stuck in your lower back, this is where it's hard to move your lower back, okay? So I'm taking, again, my hands are at my hip bones. So I'm gonna drop my left hip as though it's kind of trying to go to the floor. And then I'm pulling it back up. And I'm gonna drop my right hip. This side for me is a little bit stickier, dropping it to the floor. But you can see my knees aren't moving. I'm literally, there's a separation of my leg and my pelvis and my spine. Did you know that? They are separate bones. Your legs attach by muscles and tendons and ligaments to your hips. Your hips are their own entity. It is attached to your spine. It is not glued into your spine. So you should be able to move your pelvis from right to left side without allowing your knees to go with you. Because when the knees go with you, it does put a little bit of strain on that lower back. So keep your knees pointing up as your hip drops down and your other hip drops down. And so just feel, hopefully it starts to get unstuck, has a little bit more fluidity to the movement. Again, I am not engaging my glutes. The glutes are completely relaxed. Good. So now I'm going to take this under my left butt. So I kind of shifted it over. And I'm going to step my left foot out to the side a little bit further. And I'm shifting like a typewriter from right to left, getting into that glute. And you can kind of roll around a little bit, getting into the whole butt itself. You can kind of feel on that lateral edge of your bones that it may feel a little bit more tender. So you can kind of hang out there and typewriter or circle around a little bit. Good. Then we'll take that over to the right side. So my right glute, stepping my right foot out a little further And just typewritering right to left again. Maybe circling the hips around. And again, it's freedom of movement, so no tension, right? Trying to relax. We're being nice to the body. And maybe finding that spot a little more laterally, getting into that area. Okay. So remove your ball from your hips. Carefully rock on up to seated. So I'm going to place it right between my shoulder blades. So my shoulder wing, right? And I'm going to roll back onto that spot. I'm going to let my arms go out into a cactus arm and just let my head fall back. So it's right between the low parts of my shoulder blade. And I'm just going to sit here for a little bit and just breathe. For me and my body, I feel this in my chest. The front of my shoulders are tight. So just letting the breath kind of open that up. Then I'm going to take my hands behind my head. I'm going to keep my elbow points upward, not trying to force them down towards the floor. So it just puts tension in the base of the neck. So deep breath in, keeping the glutes relaxed. I'm going to exhale with a heavy head, curling my head and chest forward. And I'm not pulling on my neck with my hands, I'm lifting with my ribs. And just feeling how that pressure of the ball moves around my back as I curl forward and as I extend back. And I'm getting that full extension, so I'm letting those ribs flare as I go back. And then I'm finding the ribs to lift me back up. And again, stretching everything open. Exhale, folding the ribs in, curling up. And stretching it open. Now I'm going to settle into like a hover. So my head is heavy in my hands, and I'm going to side flex. So I'm pulling my left shoulder, my left rib down towards my left hip. And then I'm going to come through center, and I'm going to take it to the right side, right rib, right shoulder, side flexes down towards my right hip. And you can feel how this moves laterally across the back as you side flex from right to left. But I'm not moving my hips, I'm not moving my lower half. I'm literally just moving from my rib cage. Lower half stays completely steady. And yes, I do have big range of motion in my side flexion. So yours may feel and look completely different. So my ball is starting to make its way up my shoulders as I've been moving, because I am pushing into it a little bit. So I'm going to stop it right at the base of my neck and just let my head fall back over it. And again, open the arms out to the sides and just breathe here, letting the head kind of relax over the ball and rolling your head over to the right. Feeling that stretch all the way down the left side shoulder, arm. And rolling the head over to the left. Feeling that same stretch on the other side. Let's do one more each side, taking it over to the right. Taking it over to the left. Again. So I'm going to put this under my left shoulder, and I'm going to support my head with my right arm. And so I'm gonna move my left arm in different planes of motion. I'm a little crunchy in there. So I'm just kind of paying attention where that tightness is. Because I'm also wanting to pay attention to this for the front side as well. So we'll be getting into that. And then I can just like kind of hold the head and wiggle around from side to side, getting into the shoulder blade, that mid-back on the left side. Good. Then we switch it over to the other side, getting that right shoulder. So my left hand is gonna hold my head, and again, I'm gonna move that right arm around. This one has a little bit more range of motion for me. I am right side dominant, so I don't have as many like stuck points on this side as I do on my left, but it still feels like it needs the work. So now I'm just kind of moving around, wiggling into those tight areas, going side to side, forward and back, just kind of wiggling around in there. Feeling maybe under the shoulder or by the shoulder blade, that rotator cuff area, just kind of wiggling around. Good. So then removing that, and then again, carefully rocking up. Just kind of assessing your shoulders, feeling how like the blood flowing through there, if it feels any better than it did when we started. Okay. So now we're gonna go through the front side of our body. And because we just finished with the shoulders, and it feels so good, you can feel it getting tingly with the blood flow, let's get into the chest to really open things up even more. So what I'm gonna do, my breastbone ends down here. So I'm gonna start with the ball here. This is a rather tender area for some people, so you manage how much weight you're putting down on it by your body weight pushing into the ball. So I'm gonna lay on my belly. I'm gonna let my forehead touch down, and my arms are just out to the sides. So again, it is a little tender, but you can kind of like cover your head so it's not as tender. But I have that ability to lay all the way down without too much pain or resistance. And so I'm just gonna breathe and really focus on that full, like side to side, up and down expansion of the rib cage, and just take a few deep breaths. Then I'm gonna move it up a whole ball distance. For me, it gets a little tighter here. Just focusing on your breath. Again, moving it up one more ball distance. So now for me, it's pretty close to where my collarbone and breastbone meet. Another thing for those of you who feel it's a little too intense for this variation, you can always place your head on a yoga book or yoga block or a book. So this is the last one here. Breathing in and breathing out. So now I'm going to place a ball in my chest. So it's right below the collarbone, towards the breastbone side. And then take that right arm out to the right side. So it's on my right side of my chest. I'm planting my left arm. And I'm going to glide my shoulders to the left. So now the ball is going to the front of my right shoulder. And then I'm going to glide back towards my breastbone. So I'm gliding to the front of the shoulder and gliding to the breastbone. So again, remember, you manage how much pressure you want to put into the ball. Because you're controlling the amount of body weight that you resist downward. Also kind of pay attention, like where is it feeling really tender? Where is it feeling really tight? Maybe hang out in one of those tender areas. So now I'm going to take it down closer to where my arm crease is. And I'm going to reach my arm up. And then I'm going to glide my arm down by my side. So it's like a single arm angel wing, kind of moving into that attachment area of your pec muscle to your shoulder. And then closer down by your chest, the tighter it can be because you have a smaller pec called pec minor, and it can get much tighter actually than the pec major. So now I'm going to leave my arm at an angle because for me, it gets really tight in pec minor. So again, I'm like right at the top part of the chest and the underarm. So it's my collarbone down. So it's at an angle to the outer side of my chest. And now I'm just going to kind of do little kind of back and forth rocking in here. Because again, I know that it's tight. Needs to work out that tightness so that I have good mobility in my shoulders. And also you'll feel like you have better posture too. You can also feel kind of going into the underarm a little bit. So you're getting underneath the muscle. And then you can turn onto your side so that it is in your underarm. And you're going to roll up and down. So I'm getting down into the rib and up into the underarm. So again, this gets into that area where everything kind of wraps around your ribs, around your arm to hold it into the shoulder. There's a lot of little muscles in here. They do get tight, especially with some of our Pilates work, focusing on coming from our lats or serratus. All those muscles in there, you can kind of roll forward and back. Good. So then you can sit and just feel like how open and how different that side feels, how much more blood flow you have going on. So let's go ahead and do the other side. So again, the ball was like at the top, right by my breastbone and collarbone. So coming to the left side, the left arm goes out to the side. I'm planting my right hand on the mat. And I'm going to glide across to the right side so that the ball goes to my left shoulder. And then glide across to the breastbone. Over to the shoulder. And back and forth. So again, it's that typewriter, right to left side motion. Kind of have to adjust it as it moves around. So then Again, my tightness is over into the outer side, closer to the shoulder. So then I'm gonna go back into those angel wings on this side. And for me, I think I mentioned my left side does tend to be tighter than my right side lately. So I do feel a little bit more pressure on this side, just kind of paying attention to where that's coming up for where I want to take the ball next. So again, I'm going to go to an angle, and I'm kind of at the top of the chest in the underarm. I'm just going to roll forward and back, getting into that pec minor again. Small little pec muscle that touches underneath everything. Gets really tight. So I'm still over the top of my chest. I'm not in the boob area. It's more in that underarm, where I like to call that little fat pocket, the tissue that didn't make it down to the boob. I don't like that spot. Okay, and then I'm going to turn into the rib cage. So I'm laying on my side, and I'm just going to glide into the underarm, down into the rib, up into the underarm, down into the rib. Kind of roll back and forth in there as well. Just feeling any areas of tightness, rolling into it, massaging that area. Good. So now the chest should feel pretty good, nice and loosened up. Feels like the blood flow a little warm in that area, so it should feel good. So now, with the back, you have these muscles that attach from your ribs into the front of your femur bone, your psoas. So that's a lot of flexion. So we've been sitting a lot this past year. So we're gonna get into the psoas. This can be a kind of a tender area. So to begin, to my pants and my belly button, your psoas is like 2 fingers to your belly button. So I have my 2 fingers, and it's to the outside of those 2 fingers. So I'm gonna place my ball there to begin, and we're gonna work our way down that line until you get down close to your pubic bone, all right? So it's kind of right beside your belly button. We're staying to the inside of the pelvis, and we're gonna work our way down to right where the side of the pubic bone is, okay? So it doesn't feel very good, just a forewarning. My right side, is worse than my left. So you can start up on your forearms. For me right now, this feels pretty good. I don't need to go any deeper. Again, my right side is much, much tighter than my left. I have scoliosis on this side, so it's much shorter. So all I'm doing is breathing. Trying to relax my ribs. Breathing all the way down into my belly. Feeling as I exhale how everything relaxes. And I can feel myself allow my weight to fall a little bit closer to the floor. So I'm going to move it down a little bit. So I'm going to wiggle up. So it's kind of right below the belly button and right by the edge of my hip bone. And I'm going to try to relax even fully down onto the mat, letting the weight of my body Let the resistance, the tightness in that muscle release. And then I'm going to take it a little further down. So now it's to the inside of my hip, just above the pubic bone. And my legs are separated. They're not close together so that the pelvis can open. I'm trying to relax all the way down. Still focusing on breathing. So now I'm going to take it to the side of my hip. So I'm going to stay on this right side. So I'm going to place it right where the leg joint is. So it's like right where I flex my leg, right? And so I'm just resting into it there. And I'm going to plant my other foot in front of me so that I'm working, this leg is moving me. So I'm going to roll back and roll forward. Back and forward. So some of you may feel tighter here. You can also roll up and down into the hip crest, down to the leg. So if you're feeling kind of tight in this area, you can hang out here and just kind of roll around in all the area, loosening it up. And then I'm going to take it to my quad. So the middle of my thigh, right here, between the knee and the crease of the hip. So again, laying face down. I'm going to hitch my left leg out to the side. So just bending this leg and pulling my heel to my butt, I feel the muscle completely lengthen out. And this alone is a big stretch. It's a big pressure point. So you can extend the leg out, try to let the muscle relax down into the ball, and then flex the heel to the butt, pulling back in. Extending the leg long, try to let the muscle relax down into the ball. And then flexing the heel to your butt. And you can kind of wiggle from right to left side. Kind of keeping your leg bent and swaying your lower half of the leg from right to left. Good. Then I'm going to straighten my left leg and I'm going to turn out my right leg. So now my ball is at my right inner thigh. Okay, kind of slide over here. And then I'm going to pull down towards my groin and my knee. Up towards my groin and the knee. So you're getting into the inner thigh. This is good if you have any inner knee issues. Helps to loosen all of that up, both the one that we just did and the quad as well as this one. Good. So we're going to still go on the right leg. We have one more that we're going to do. I think it's this way. So my right leg is going to go behind me, and I'm literally putting the ball right at my butt bone. So my butt bone is right over the ball. So yes, my left hip is down, my right hip is up because of the ball being underneath it. So I'm going to place my hands in front of me on the left leg, and I'm going to sit back into it and roll forward. Sit back into it and roll forward. So you're just kind of moving over that right sit bone. So my knee does come up on that side. It's just getting those attachment areas in the hamstring, your sit bones, a little bit into the inner thigh area. Okay, so then that leg has been sufficiently worked. Now we're going to do that whole thing on the left side body. So again, we're starting in our psoas, so we're up just to the side of the belly button, just slightly below the belly button. So the left psoas. Probably should have waited a little longer after breakfast to do this. All right, so breathing in and breathing out. So I'm staying lifted on my forearms because that pressure of going all the way down does put some pressure on my back because it's so tight. So I don't want to overextend what the body wants to do. So just breathing into this side, trying to get it to relax. The point where I feel like I'm ready to move on is when I don't feel like I'm holding so much strain, I'm holding so much tension. I am able to kind of feel a release, feeling like I'm letting go. So I'm going to move down a little bit. So right now I'm like just above the hip bone. Deep breaths in and out. Going a little bit lower to the last point. So I am to the inside of my hip bone, just above the pubic bone. So now that I have released the rib attachment of my psoas on this side, I do feel like I'm able to relax a little bit more on this last pressure point, getting closer to the femur bone attachment, so inside the thigh bone. Okay. So now I'm going to move on to the side of that left hip. So I'm turning onto that side right where that leg creases. I'm planting my right foot in front of me, and I'm going to roll forward into the hip and back. Rolling forward into the hip and back. And you can go up and down. Good. So then this is the one where I'm going in the middle of my thigh. So right between the knee and the hip crease, right in the center of my left leg. Laying face down. Right leg is hitched out to the side. So my left leg is completely hovered off of the floor. And I'm going to flex the leg in, heel to butt. Just holding that for a moment because it does feel pretty tight. And then when you're feeling it relax, slowly start to let the leg extend out long, let the muscle relax. Flexing in. And extending the leg out long. Try to let the leg get heavy into the ball so you're not holding tension. Flexing in. Extending out long, weighting down. So this is the one where I'm going to flex my leg in and I'm going to roll it from side to side. So there's a muscle, I'm sure you've heard me talk about it, called your sartorius. It attaches at the outer side of your hip and it crosses over the front of your quad. And it attaches down inside your knee. So this muscle gets pretty tight. I call it a firework. Definitely can feel it. Then I'm going to straighten my right leg and I'm going to hitch the left leg out to the side. So now it's in my inner thigh and I'm going to glide up into my groin and down towards my knee. Up into the inner thigh, the groin, and down into the knee. And then carefully coming up. And this is the one where we sit mermaid style. So my left leg is drawing back. I'm going to set the ball right on that left butt bone. And I'm going to roll back and forth on that butt bone. Kind of gets into the hamstring a little bit where you're attached back of your leg to your thigh. And kind of roll back and forth. So kind of sitting my hip back and rolling my hip forward. Release. So there you are, your full body massage. I'm sure there's some other things that I could possibly come up with different areas, but I feel like all the ones that we hit are pretty good trigger points for most typical injuries, shoulder, neck issues, hip, back issues. So hopefully your body feels much better than when we started. Thank you.